So, have you ever found yourself just completely exhausted, like really worn out from trying to change what other people say or think or even do?
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's, a parent worrying about their grown kid's lifestyle or maybe a friend who just insists you have to see things their way.
Right. That feeling of just burning energy on stuff you really can't control. I think that's something pretty much everyone can relate to.
It's a super common frustration, isn't it? This desire to influence things that are ultimately outside our direct control. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
It is. For this deep dive, we're getting into The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. It's a book that, honestly, offers a pretty surprising secret to, well, better relationships and finding a bit more peace.
And the secret is basically letting go of that need to control other people.
Exactly. Now, for those listening who, like us, really value getting knowledge quickly and thoroughly, the idea of just letting them might sound a little simplistic, maybe raise a few eyebrows.
Yeah, like, is this just a collection of nice stories or is there something more to it? Good question.
It is a good question. And what makes this interesting, I think, is that it's not just anecdotal. Robbins actually backs it up with uh, research in psychology, neuroscience, even pulling from some ancient philosophies.
Right. So our goal today is really to unpack the core principles of this theory. We want to give you some practical takeaways, those kind of aha moments you can actually use.
Our mission then is clear. Understand the nuts and bolts of the let them theory and figure out how it can, free us from the stress of trying to control the uncontrollable.
And ultimately lead to more empowering relationships and, frankly, just feeling more in charge of our own emotional well-being.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with this whole problem of control. The basic idea is that often without even realizing it, we hand over our power to other people by trying to manage their thoughts, feelings, actions.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Our attempt to control, which often comes from a good place or maybe from fear, can actually make us more vulnerable to what others do or feel.
Yeah, Mel Robbins shares this really relatable story about um, her trying to control her son's prom night. The corsage, the dinner reservations, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And she realized that all this micromanaging wasn't just pointless, it was actually causing her a ton of stress.
And that's such a great example. How often do we get emotionally invested in these little details that honestly probably don't matter much to the other person or don't even affect the outcome?
Precisely. And if you connect that back to, wanting to avoid feeling overwhelmed, which I know is important to our listeners, trying to control others, is a major source of that overwhelm. We just burn ourselves out trying to steer things that aren't ours to steer.
Which brings us neatly to the first part of the theory. Let them. The core idea here is simple but powerful. Just give up the need to manage other people.
Robbins tells another story about this. Some friends went on a trip without inviting her. Her first reaction, feeling left out, wanted to fix it, figure out why.
That classic reaction, right? What did I do wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then she had this realization. She needed to just let them. Let them live their lives, make their own choices, even if it felt a bit weird or hurtful at first.
And that realization is key. Let them doesn't mean you suddenly approve of what they're doing or even agree with it. It's more about acknowledging their autonomy.
Right, accepting they have the right to their own experiences, even if those experiences don't line up with what we want or expect.
She uses this great analogy, the seesaw. When you're trying to control someone and you feel bad when you can't, you're basically giving them the power. You push yourself down on the emotional seesaw.
That's such a strong visual, isn't it? You're making yourself beneath them, emotionally speaking.
Absolutely. By clinging to that control attempt and letting the failure drag you down, you just create imbalance and honestly often resentment.
But saying let them mentally is like pushing off, bringing your side of the seesaw back up. It changes the whole dynamic.
And it's crucial to stress this isn't about feeling superior, like, oh, I'm above all this.
No, not at all.
It's about creating balance, creating healthy space for everyone involved, recognizing everyone's on their own path.
Exactly. It's not our job to force them onto our path, which leads perfectly into the second really critical step. Let me.
Right. After you say let them, the focus has to shift back to you. Your reactions, your choices, your responsibilities. It's the active part of letting go.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let me is where you grab the reins again. It's not enough to just passively let others do their thing. You have to look inward.
So going back to that friend's trip example, after Robbins decided to let them go without her, she had the mental space to actually examine her own role.
And what did she find?
She realized she hadn't exactly been proactive in keeping up those friendships lately, so the thought became, okay, Let me take responsibility for that. Let me be more proactive going forward.
See, that's the crucial link. Let me
Bingo.
pulls you out of being a victim or just a passive observer. You become the actor in your own life again.
And this has a direct impact on managing stress day to day. Think about getting stuck in a long line or awful traffic things you absolutely cannot control.
Ugh, yes. Instant stress.
But that quick mental, let the traffic be bad, let the line be long, it can immediately soften your emotional reaction. It's amazing how a simple mindset shift works, isn't it?
It really is. You stop pouring energy into fighting reality.
Recognizing you can't change the external situation and choosing not to invest negative emotion in it, that's powerful self-care right there. Preserves your mental energy.
Robbins even suggests a little technique. Let them pause. Let me breathe. Say, let them take a short pause. Think, let me focus on your response and take a deep breath.
And that breathing part isn't just fluff. Dr. Aditi Narurkar confirms this deep breathing helps regain control. It actually stimulates the vagus nerve, which calms your nervous system down.
It's that mind-body connection. Pairing the mental shift, let them, with the physical action, breathing, helps you choose a calmer, more considered response instead of just reacting.
Exactly. You're consciously interrupting that stress spiral.
Okay, so let's talk about applying this. How does let them work in different areas? Let's start with work, career stuff.
Okay.
The book gives an example of someone waiting ages for a promotion that just never seems to happen. What's the typical reaction there?
Oh, frustration, definitely. Feeling like you deserve it, but the decision is totally out of your hands.
Right. You can't control your boss's decision. Let them.
Yeah.
But what can you control?
Your own response. Instead of just stewing in resentment, you can say, okay, let me focus on finding a better opportunity elsewhere. Let me update my resume. Let me network.
Exactly. Realizing your value isn't solely dependent on this one person's recognition.
And that's where the feeling of empowerment comes from. You shift focus to what you can influence your skills, your job search, instead of feeling stuck waiting for someone else. You take back control of your career path.
Okay, what about personal boundaries and opinions? How often do we bite our tongues because we're afraid of what someone else will think?
All the time. The theory encourages us to just let them think whatever the heck they want. How liberating does that sound?
Seriously liberating. Because trying to control or predict what others think is just impossible. And it's a huge source of anxiety.
You're essentially seeking constant approval, making yourself dependent on their judgment. It's exhausting.
Trying to manage their thoughts is giving away your power. Letting go of that burden takes courage, sure, but it lets you live more authentically. You give yourself permission to just be you.
It's a real act of self-affirmation. You allow yourself your own beliefs and the space to express them without constantly filtering through the "what will they think" lens.
Now let's wade into potentially trickier waters. Family dynamics. Control here often stems from caring, right? Which makes it complicated.
Definitely. Especially in blended families or with in-laws, the emotional stakes can feel really high.
The book uses the step-parent example. The theory suggests, let them grieve the old family structure. Let them maybe see you as a threat initially. Let them feel their feelings. That requires some serious grace, doesn't it?
It does. Acknowledging and accepting their feelings, even if they feel negative towards you, is often the first step to easing tensions. You can't force acceptance.
And the let me part in that situation, it's about let me operate with more grace, more patience, more compassion.
Yeah.
Understanding their reaction might not even be about you personally, but about their own adjustment.
Exactly. Focus on your own behavior, how you choose to respond constructively rather than trying to manage their emotional process.
Robbins introduces this really powerful idea called the frame of reference. Basically, everyone sees the world through their own unique lens, shaped by their experiences, beliefs, fears.
Yeah, their personal context.
She tells this story about her mother-in-law, who initially disapproved of her marriage.
Ah, okay. A classic potential conflict zone.
But when she dug deeper, she realized that disapproval wasn't really judgment about her. It was the mother's fear of losing her daughter, of her moving away.
So the mother's frame of reference was about proximity and connection, not necessarily criticism of the relationship itself.
Exactly. Understanding that frame of reference, her fear fostered understanding and helped balance the relationship. It's a reminder that what feels like criticism might just be someone else's fear or unmet need talking.
Trying to see things from their perspective, even if you don't agree with it, can totally change how you perceive the situation and calm your own reaction.
Okay, let's talk about dealing with what Robbins calls grown-up tantrums, emotional immaturity in adults.
Huh. Yes.
It happens. She argues that adults can be just as emotionally immature as kids sometimes, and crucially, it is not our job to manage their reactions. That's a boundary we need to hold, right?
Absolutely critical boundary. We often feel responsible for fixing other people's emotions, smoothing things over, but that just drains us and keeps us tangled up in their stuff.
Take the silent treatment, for example.
Mm.
Classic immature tactic when someone's upset and doesn't know how to communicate healthily.
Yeah, shutting down.
The let them theory response. Just let them, don't get sucked into the game of trying to coax them out of it or figure out what you did wrong.
Recognizing that their silence reflects their difficulty with communication, not necessarily something you did, lets you detach personally. You don't engage. You don't try to fix their silence.
And it helps to remember the basic science of emotions. They're like these chemical bursts, right? They last about 90 seconds
Mm-hmm.
if you don't keep feeding them with reactions.
Yeah, and things like being hungry, tired, stressed, they can totally amplify those reactions. Understanding that gives you a bit of distance perspective.
You realize you can't stop the initial feeling, maybe, but you can choose not to get swept away by it or let an impulsive reaction make it last longer.
Exactly. Now, the book also tackles those really hard decisions, the ones that are right for you but might cause pain for someone else, like the groom wanting to call off the wedding.
Oof. Yeah, that's tough.
There's that inherent tension. You feel guilty about hurting someone, but Robbins emphasizes you must prioritize your own well-being and truth, even while being compassionate. It's a delicate balance.
You can't sacrifice your own happiness just to avoid someone else's uncomfortable reaction.
Right. Let them feel their disappointment, let them be hurt, while you, let me, stand in your truth, kindly but firmly.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, comparison. Hmm. Uh, how much energy do we waste comparing ourselves to others, giving our power away to things we can't change about them or us?
Oh, it's such an insidious trap, isn't it? Constantly feeding dissatisfaction, chipping away at self-esteem. You focus on what you lack instead of appreciating your own journey.
There's an anecdote about sisters where one, Sawyer, is just consumed by comparing herself physically and talent-wise to her younger sister, Kendall, just torturing herself.
And the point Robbins makes is crucial. She couldn't save Sawyer from that comparison. Sawyer had to choose to shift her own perspective. It's an active, internal choice.
Nobody can convince you of your worth if you're determined to focus on what others seem to have. The change has to come from inside you deciding to look differently.
But here's an interesting twist Robbins offers. Other people's success doesn't have to be a source of envy. It can actually be a formula or inspiration. Let them have their success, then beat you to it. Their success gives you the formula. Instead of jealousy, it can become a roadmap.
Ah, okay. So if someone achieves something you want, instead of feeling bad, you can study how they did it.
Exactly. It can show you the steps, the strategies. It turns envy into motivation for your own progress.
There's another example, Molly, who's jealous of a new designer in town. This irritating person basically highlighted what Molly already knew she needed to do but hadn't.
So the anger wasn't really at the designer.
It was anger at herself for procrastinating. Don't we often find that? The people who annoy us most sometimes just hold up a mirror to our own inaction or insecurities.
Absolutely. Their success confronts us with our own excuses.
Robbins even shares her own experience being jealous of a friend's house renovation. Initially, it felt negative, like, why them?
But what happened?
Ultimately, it lit a fire under her. It motivated her to work towards her own goals. So, turning envy into fuel, that's a powerful shift.
Transforming envy into inspiration. Seeing their success not as a threat, but as proof that what you want is possible, and maybe even a guide on how to get there.
Okay, let's talk friendships. Adult friendships, they change, right?
Yeah.
Proximity, timing, energy levels, it all shifts.
Totally. Life happens. Priorities change, lifestyles diverge. It's natural for some connections to loosen over time.
So when friendships fade, it often isn't personal, it's just circumstances. The theory says, let them drift, if that's what's happening. It can be sad, but it's often reality.
Accepting that reality is important, and that feeling when you realize a friendship is totally one-sided, that hurts.
Yeah. You gotta look at those pillars: proximity, timing, energy. If one or more are consistently off balance, maybe the friendship has run its course. Let them go, perhaps.
You can't keep pouring into a relationship that isn't feeding you back, or where the investment is totally skewed. Sometimes let them means accepting an ending.
But it's not just about letting go. The let me part is vital for creating new friendships, especially after big life changes like moving or switching jobs.
Yes. Robin talks about feeling lonely after a move and realizing she couldn't just wait for people to come to her. She had to go first, initiate contact. That takes guts.
It does. Making new friends as an adult requires being proactive, maybe a little vulnerable, stepping out of the comfort zone.
But it doesn't have to be huge gestures. Small, consistent actions work wonders. Introducing yourself, asking someone for coffee, suggesting a walk.
Right. Regularity and just being open. Let me make the first move. Let me show interest. That's the key.
Let me take the initiative. Let me be open and curious. Those actions plant the seeds for potentially great new connections.
Now, influencing change, we often want to help people we care about change, right? But pushing them rarely works. People resist feeling controlled. Have you noticed that?
Oh, definitely. Change has to come from within. Trying to force it just bumps up against their need for autonomy.
So, Robin suggests modeling the behavior you want to see. Instead of lecturing a friend about exercising, just go for walks yourself consistently.
Like the coworker example in the book, one person started walking daily, and eventually others joined in without any direct pressure. Positive peer influence.
Exactly. Influence by example is subtle, but often way more effective. You create an environment where the change feels appealing, not imposed.
She also lays out this ABC loop for influence. A is apologize and ask open-ended questions like, why does this bother you? Repeatedly to get to the root.
Okay.
B is back off. Give them space. Observe their behavior. Don't hover.
And C.
C is celebrate any progress, however small, while you continue to model the desired behavior yourself. The goal is for them to feel like the change was their idea.
That's a really gentle, respectful approach. It honors their autonomy while still nudging things along.
Okay, this next one is tough. Watching someone you love struggle, you desperately want to help fix it for them.
But Robbins makes the hard point.
Yeah.
You cannot want their recovery or their change more than they do.
That's a painful truth sometimes. And trying to rescue someone can actually backfire. It can prevent them from finding their own strength.
The more you rescue, the more they sink. She quotes Dr. Waldinger on letting people learn from life, face natural consequences.
It sounds harsh, but sometimes stepping back is the most helpful thing. She gives the example of her daughter's anxiety.
Right. She let her sleep in their room to comfort her, but it inadvertently made the anxiety worse because it reinforced avoidance, thinking she was helping, but actually enabling.
So true support isn't necessarily removing the struggle. It's believing in their ability to handle hard things and standing by them while they do it, not doing it for them.
She also touches on financial enabling of adult kids. Let them struggle. Let them violate the terms of your support.
And then let me cut them off financially. Whoa! That's a tough one, but sometimes necessary for them to learn responsibility.
Yeah, she contrasts that with the genuine, unconditional support she received after her first baby help that empowered her, didn't create dependence. Big difference between enabling and truly supporting.
Huge difference. Supporting builds autonomy. Constant rescuing can create dependence and hinder resilience.
Okay, let's talk love and dating. It can feel like a minefield out there, right? Sometimes pretty toxic.
Definitely challenging. Robin stresses the importance of just being yourself and being decisive about who gets your time and energy. Authenticity is key.
Trying to be someone you're not, just to please someone else. That's a recipe for failure long term.
She has that really blunt line. If they like you, you'll know. If they don't, you'll be confused. Cuts through all the ambiguity, doesn't it?
It really does. No more overthinking or making excuses for mixed signals. Stop chasing people who don't prioritize you.
Let them not text you back. Let them be flaky.
Let me see them for who they are. Clearly, I am not a priority here. And then move on. Painful lesson sometimes, but necessary.
Absolutely crucial. Recognizing those clear signs of disinterest and choosing, to withdraw your energy from situations where you're not valued.
What about committed relationships? For them to last, she says two things are key.
What are they?
One, both people have to actually want it to work and be willing to do the work. And two, the issues can't require either person to give up core dreams or values.
Makes sense. Mutual commitment and respect for each person's individual needs and path. If someone has to constantly sacrifice fundamental parts of themselves, it's probably not sustainable.
She introduces the deal-breaker decision. D, decide if you can truly live with the problem long term. E, either end the complaining about it, accept it, or end the relationship.
That forces clarity. And she mentions the Gottman statistic, something like 69% of relationship problems are perpetual, not actually solvable.
Wow, 69%. So acceptance becomes huge. accepting that your partner might just be a certain way on some things.
Exactly. It's unrealistic to think you can fundamentally change another person. Learning to accept the unchangeable parts is key for longevity.
Okay, heartbreak. One of the toughest experiences.
Awful. Robin suggests the no contact for 30 days rule, which is pretty standard advice. Give yourself space.
And crucially, allow yourself to grieve. Let me grieve this loss. Don't try to bypass the pain.
Right. Feel the feelings. She also offers research-backed tips for moving forward. Give it time. Maintain no contact. Practice self-compassion.
Fill your calendar, take on a new challenge, reframe your perspective. It's about actively rebuilding with kindness towards yourself.
Healing takes time and intentional effort. Those strategies provide a framework for gradually moving through it.
And finally, underpinning everything is the relationship you have with yourself.
The foundation, really, all other relationships reflect that one.
She encourages self-compassion, respecting your own boundaries, going after your dreams without needing anyone else's permission or approval.
And it loops back to the core message. Let them be who they are.
But more importantly, let yourself be who you truly are. Isn't that really the ultimate takeaway?
Absolutely. Taking care of yourself, respecting yourself, allowing yourself to be authentic, that's the bedrock for healthy, fulfilling connections with others.
So to wrap up this deep dive on the let them theory, the main idea is pretty clear. Find freedom by focusing on what you can control, which is basically just yourself, and letting go of that exhausting need to manage everyone else.
It's a path towards less stress, more peace. And it aligns perfectly with wanting practical tools for a better life, which I know our listeners appreciate. This theory offers a way to navigate relationships with more ease and fulfillment.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Just imagine all the energy you could unlock if you stopped fighting battles you can't win, stopped trying to control the uncontrollable.
And instead, poured that energy into building the life you actually want. What could become possible then?
Something to think about. We really encourage you to mull over these ideas, see where the let them and let me principles might fit in your own life.
The potential for positive change is pretty huge. Give it some thought.